Hello and welcome. It is 6 o'clock and it is the 6 o'clock club. I am Andy from Twisted Narrative and we have Kristian here as
Hello,
always,
everybody.
Monday to Friday. Elsa says first. Hiya, Elsa, straight in there. Welcome to the chat. Um, we've got a great one tonight. Hope it's great. Anyway, hope you're going to enjoy it. We're going to be talking about Blades in the Dark, fantastic system that has kind of spawned other systems, Scum and Villainy, I believe. Hey, Kyle, thanks for jumping into chat. So I'm very excited to start having conversation about it. Um, we didn't have a game last night. So we've got nothing to talk about. I haven't got a game tonight, so we've got nothing to talk about there. So Blades in the Dark. Why are we talking about it other than it's a fantastic setting? Hey there, Brooks. Hey there, Michael. Thanks for joining us in chat. Yeah, it's a great system. It's got everything that I really like about games and setting. It's urban. I like my urban settings. It's about rogues. I like my rogues. It's kind of got a very light mechanics. I like light mechanics. And you don't really need to plan because you can retro plan stuff. And I like that as well. So for me, it is a complete package. The reason why we're talking about it, other than, as I said, it is a great system, is Kristian here has volunteered to run a game. We're going to do an actual play of it, and I'm going to be
Yes, we
playing
are.
in it.
Very
Um,
exciting.
so I'm just going to quickly call up the cover here, Blades in the Dark, written by John Harper. Um, it's a fantastic system. I will be putting links into John's YouTube channel. He's got a YouTube channel under his own name where he's started doing some. He's done some actual plays, but he's done some hints and tips as well. Um, I will also put a link into their website as well, so you can go and check it out there. They've got some very good, awesome content that you can peruse, you can have a look at. A lot of the basic rules are on the website for you to have a read through if you don't get enough information, which you will do in the next 30 or 40 minutes from us, I'm sure. Um, but it'll certainly give you a nice flavour to it as well. So once this video comes to an end, I'll be popping all of that into the comments below. Um, I'm so excited about this. I might even create an independent channel on our Discord server as well, which will also be in the comment section below. The artwork is great. I think it really sums up the look and feel of this game. So I mean that's the basic introduction. What I'm going to do is pass it across to my games master over here.
I know. It's been a long time since I've GM'd for you, Andy. Quite a few years.
Wasn't too
Um,
traumatic last time.
your characters are unique, and they are a dream for a GM and a nightmare. So we'll leave it at that. Well, firstly, I kind of wanted to talk about why Blades in the Dark. It's a system that I've seen actual plays of from Oxventure, for anyone that knows the Oxventure channel, which is outside Xbox, outside Extra. And I loved the idea of the system. I loved the way it worked. I loved what they were doing with it. And I thought I'd really like to have a go with that. But then I put it to the back of my mind for a very long time. And I recently started replaying Bloodborne, which is in that kind of Victorian grim setting. And I thought, I really would like to do Blades in the Dark. And Andy and I have been talking about it. And the idea of doing actual Blades on the channel came up. And I thought, you know what? I'd like to give that a go. So not only am I DMing a system that I've not DM'd before, I'm also doing it live in front of a lot of people. So no pressure on me. So really, yeah, it's a really interesting, really interesting system, and it's D6 based. For those of you that don't know, and it's dice pools. Well, you have a stat. You have sort of your abilities. So hunt, study, survey, tinker, finesse, prowl, skirmish, wreck, attune, command, consort, and sway. I was reading that from a list. And the reason, the way it works is if you have a dot in it, you roll that many dice. For every dot you have in that skill, you roll that many dice. And a 1, 2, and 3 is always a fail. A 4 and 5 is a success, but with a complication. And a 6 is a critical success. And there's always a with a complication, it's always based on your current position as well, whether you're coming from a controlled position or a risky position, and so on. There's the damage mechanics really unique as well, in that you have harm, and you have the harm of level 1, 2, and 3. So 1 is sort of, there's a low effect harm. Level 2 is you get -1 dice. Level 3 is you need help. Oh, and I should say on the dice rolls, if you don't have a dot in it, you roll 2d6 and take the lowest every time. But with the harm, it doesn't have like boxes for you to tick and say, well, I've got level 1 harm. It's got an area where you can write in the harm that you've currently taken. So like broken leg or anything. And Elsa just said it sounds punishing, and it is quite punishing. You're supposed to be underdogs. The whole idea is you're supposed to be an underdog in Blades in the Dark. You're supposed to be the plucky thieves that are going to go in and steal from the corrupt governor. I mean, that doesn't make you the good guys, because I think in the world of Blades in the Dark, there are no good guys. There are just people. But yeah, so it can be quite punishing. But you've got downtime, and you've got activities you can take to kind of improve yourself, or reduce your harm, reduce your stress. There is a stress meter and there is a trauma meter. Stress is something you can take through various things. So again, going back to your ability scores, if you don't have a dice and you want one, you can take a point of stress. You can push yourself. Or if you want an extra point, you can push yourself and get an extra die in that thing. Or someone else can help you potentially for stress. Or you can do a group action where everyone rolls that stat, and the person that is leading the action will take a number of stress points equal to the number of failures in the group, but you'll take the highest one single result from the group, which is can be fair. And you've got a fair amount of stress you can take before you start getting into dangerous territory. Healing happens on a clock, and clocks are quite big in Blades in the Dark. So in downtime, you can heal, and you fill in by trying to heal. You can fill in portions of a clock, and when that heals, everything gets reduced by a level. There are sort of character classes.
Yeah.
You've got kind of
Shall
cutter.
we? I was going to say, are we going to be playing it in the world setting?
Oh yes, we are going to be in the world, and I was going to get onto that in a minute.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, because I'm not entirely sure that everybody's. I think they've got the theme of it, but fundamentally, you're not a typical adventuring party, are you?
No,
In
no.
Blades in the Dark, it's because Elsa said it sounds punishing, and yeah, this isn't your high fantasy adventuring party going on an adventure. Technically or traditionally, I suppose, the adventuring company is what's known as a crew. Is that right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
there are bonds between. It's kind of honor amongst thieves or assassins or cutthroats or whatever, more or
Smugglers
less. Smugglers, yeah.
or a
Um,
cult.
mm, um, Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just kind of wanted to give a little flavour, not of the setting. I'll let you, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But Blades in the Dark in itself, um, I mean, daring scoundrels, and building sort of from a crew, an organization, a criminal organization or enterprise. And one of the reasons perhaps I like it, from the actual rule book, it's called Haunted Streets of an Industrial Fantasy City. Um, the game setting is nothing like the Smoke, but it feels very much like that, which is very much why I love it so much. Um, Heist, chases, escapes, dangerous bargains, bloody skirmishes, deceptions, betrayals, victories, and deaths, which is all the words that they've just kind of put into the opening kind of introduction to it. And I mean, that just gets me so excited. It really
Yes,
does.
it's
Dripping with
it's it's a
flavour.
it gives you some touchstones as well in the player's guide, sort of
Yeah.
things that you might have seen or listened to or played that kind of align with it. And Bloodborne is one of the things. I also find it resonates quite a lot with the Dishonored series.
Hmm.
That's in the list as well, which is that sort of industrial Victoriana kind of
Yeah.
world. And the town of Duskfall or Duskwall
Hmm.
or the Dusk. It's supposed to be like London or a mix between London, Venice, and Paris, and not the nice bits. It's lots of corruption, corrupt officials. There's lots of gangs and organizations. And when you start a crew, if you've got a campaign, you do a crew, you have to keep track of your standing with all the factions, because everyone's out to get everyone else, and you're trying to sort of get your own gang in the world. So, but what we'll be running, Elsa love Dishonored. Yeah, it's fantastic. The theming of Dishonored is the thing that got me, and that's what I certainly what I will be bringing hopefully to the table in the game. That sort of dark thing. It's a sort of city that I hate from a personal level because I'm terrified of heights. But everything's high and everything's kind of towers and houses on houses and bridges everywhere and things like that. It's all quite cramped, but all really sort of everything's towering, and it would scare the life out of me, as I said, because I'm absolutely terrified of heights. But it is grim, and the idea is that at a certain point in the past there was a calamity where the gates of death broke and spirits and other things made it back into the world. So there are ghosts everywhere. And around all the cities of the empire are these lightning towers, and these lightning towers keep the ghosts out, or most of them. If someone dies in the city, you've got to be very careful because you don't want it turning into a ghost. And that's another thing where, kind of a bit like Dishonored, you don't really want to go around killing everyone, because that makes the world a really bad place, because you're not just doing away with someone, you could be creating another ghost or getting heat on you for having ghosts, doing these things. But I will say the game is rather fair. It is as kind of bleak as we're making it sound. It is rather fair, and as Andy alluded to, this fantastic mechanic when you're in a heist, because the idea is that you don't really plan. You tell the GM from a list of things, this is how we're going to do it. The GM rolls, or you roll an engagement dice pool, and then once that's rolled, if you get that sort of gets you to the first point where you're in. So if it was a social function, you'd be standing in front of the person you needed to talk to. If it was a heist, you might be in the building ready to try and find the vault, something like that. The reason is you're giving these flashbacks where you can basically say, well, that guard over there, flashback, earlier on, I would have checked out the pubs and had a good old chin wag with him and got him drunk and that sort of thing. You can't change the future. You can't change the present, as in say, well, I went back in time and I stabbed him. That doesn't work. You have to work with the story. And it's also big on you choosing. So you say, I want to try and do this. As a GM, I'm not going to say, well, roll me sway. I'll say, well, tell me what you want to roll. argue your case, use
Yeah.
the skills you've got, which I quite like. It's very narrative, very very narrative, and I like a narrative game. And it does all just boil down to just roll a d6 or roll whatever you've got, and then we'll work out what happens.
Yeah. It's very much got a sort of huge storytelling sort of potential, hasn't it? Um, no, very, very good. So, with all this crime about in Duskfall and everything and all the weirdness, I don't suppose I can be Batman, can I?
Yes, you could be Batman if you wanted to. I mean, we're gonna be live streaming it though, so I don't really want Warner Brothers lawyers knocking at the door.
Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder why there's no um, sort of heroes here, and I think the answer is they've all been removed from the scene.
Yeah, yeah. It's a sort of city where if you go, I'm a Caped Crusader, you're going to end up face down in the
In the
inky
sewers.
blackness of the
Yeah,
water.
absolutely. No, it's and I kind of like that. I mean, there are the law, but the law is corrupt and in the pockets of other people, and
Yep, yep.
um, it's got that very grim sort of setting that I love so much. Um, and I like the supernatural element to it as well.
Yes, yeah.
I
There
think
are
it
ghosts everywhere and demons that live in the deep.
Yeah, yeah. It allows for that gothic fantasy if you like that kind of story. Um, as Christian said, rather than playing a crew of scoundrels, and you choose really if you were developing a crew, what your crew is going to be. Um, but you can be a cult instead. I'm pleased that you've asked Elsa when the actual play is going to be. There we go. That has obscured our faces. That's a positive. Um,
Hey,
but Blades in
I
the
like this
Dark,
face.
one last score, actual play. Hopefully, if everything comes together, it will be 28th of February 2023. And it's thanks to you, Elsa, for giving me the confidence to go out and do some graphic design that I put this together. And that is your Twisted Narrative logo thing that you did for me up there. So thank you very much. So that is basically in 2 weeks' time. So it will be on a Tuesday night. What we'll probably do is we'll probably talk about Blades in the Dark again on the 28th on the 6 o'clock club, building up the hype for the actual play. Then we'll have a little bit of a break, 15 minutes or so, and then we will um, roll credits. Is that the end or the start? Depends which era you're in.
Depends
Um,
if yeah, it depends when the film's from.
yeah. Um, but I'm very, very excited about that. So if you've got any questions about Blades in the Dark, shout up now. I will be putting all of the links and everything else into chat. Um, there are a couple of mechanics that I'd like to talk about, um, and I'm completely in Christian's hands here because he is going to be the GM. So I'm not going to be the kind of player that goes, oh, but the rules say this. I'm just going to be enjoying the narrative, as it were. But one of the cool mechanics, I think, anyway, that they've got is clocks. Are you familiar with the clock system that they've got in the setting?
Oh yes, oh yes,
Shall we chat about those for a moment?
yes. Let's talk about clocks.
So basically, when you try to do something, or when something happens, you might trigger it. So, for instance, if the guards are alerted, but they're not immediately on the scene, a clock will start. And as far as I'm aware, a clock can have a number of segments in. I think the
Yep.
smallest clock is probably about
I think it's 4.
quarters, 4. Yeah, I was going to say 4 quarters, but kind of 4 and quarters are the same thing. Yeah, yeah. You can't. I suppose you can have 4/8, which is a half. This is maths on a 6 o'clock
This is
club.
beyond me.
This indicates that when the 4 quarters fill up, the guards will arrive. So there's peril on the way, sort of thing, really, and you are aware that you've only got a certain amount of time to achieve certain things or put into place something um, to deal with the peril or threat. And I think this is a really nice mechanic. What are your thoughts?
I mean, it's a system I've adopted into D&D now that I run.
Fantastic.
I mean, it is that something's going to happen in the future, and you're aware how many segments the clock has. So the GM, certainly from the ones I've seen, it's the GM will say, "I'm starting a clock with eight segments for this thing," and they'll tell you when certain things will make it fill up faster. Sometimes time will make it fill up faster, and when that thing happens, that thing will happen, and it's a really good way, a really good compelling event to try and make players hurry up or focus on something, um, or a way to kind of get them to focus on a slightly different scenario, because quite often players will focus on the goal, and it's nice to throw things in there that are going to mix things up a little bit. It's the thing I like in Shadowrun, where how are you going to screw the players over this time? It's what's this clock going to do to them? What's when they get to the end of it, the guard shot, what then? What are you going to do? It's a really fun mechanic, and the length of the clock could make you complacent, or it could really put the pressure on.
Yeah. And I like it because it's motivations, and it can be kind of, small motivations or big motivations depending on the type of clock. And I kind of really like that because it adds that that complication, that something is going to happen, and it's not immediate, that you just kind of don't have any time to think about. It gives time for narrative to unwind around it. Um, I think it's, again, a very clever mechanic. One other mechanic that I've certainly started incorporating into other systems as well is something that I like a lot: the Devil's Bargain.
Yes.
Do you want to tell
Yes.
us about that?
Well, it's you can basically get something. If you might not be close, so you might not have a dice in something, you might not be close to achieving something. As a GM, you can say to the player, "Well, would you like a dice in that? Because I'll give you one, but it's a devil's bargain." And if you take this dice, if you take this this deal, you'll get what you want, but there'll be some consequence. And there is a kind of a framework it gives you to help build up what they might be, but also as a GM, you can come up with whatever you want.
Yeah, yeah.
And it really helps twist things around, because you can make a really tempting deal of, well, for example, heat is a mechanism in the game to determine how wanted you are. It's like your wanted level if you played Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
And you could say, well, you succeed at that, but with the devil's bargain, I'm going to increase your heat by 2, or I'm going to give you harm, or whatever. And you still get the devil bargain. If you fail, obviously the devil's bargain still is in place. You still have the effect. Same with flashbacks. If you fail in a flashback, it still happens. But you get that chance to maybe succeed, maybe get by through the skin of your teeth. But yeah, you take that negative effect. So it's a great one for the GM, because you get to find fun ways to throw things in your opponent in your players
Oh, we're
in your players'
opponents, are
faces.
we? All right.
Well, actually, that's an interesting point because it does say in the GM rules, and I quote, at least I would quote, it says GM principles: be a fan of the PCs,
Mm, yeah,
and
it's
that
so,
is
yeah. Go on. It's something that I advocate a lot,
yeah,
but
yeah. So, what about you, Devil's Bargain, then? Because I've been on the end of some of these in some of your other games.
I just like it's a good way. Um, like I say, be a fan of the characters, the players, and there are systems that we play like fifth edition D&D. I'm not again having a downer on it. Mechanically, it's a very swingy system, especially earlier levels. You're rolling a d20, and you might only have a +3 or +4 modifier to it. Um, at later levels, it's less swingy because your modifiers are higher. But sometimes, and technically speaking, GM's advice is never ask for a roll unless you are prepared for the players to fail the roll.
Yes,
If they can succeed, then don't ask for a roll because in a swingy system like fifth ed, there's a chance they might fail.
yes,
But when when people are having bad luck, or players rolling dice in a game of variance, it's quite nice sometimes, especially when you kind of wanted them to find out or you kind of wanted them to succeed, because it helps the narrative format to basically go, look, okay, the dice have spoken. I've already spoken a lot about I like my open dice rolls, but if you want to succeed, how about this? A devil's bargain, and it can be anything, you know. Uh, Many of the things you've mentioned, maybe a flaw, maybe a character trait, maybe they lose an item, maybe they gain the attention of a greater power for ill or good. You know, there's a whole host of different things based on different circumstances, and yeah, I've borrowed heavily from that because I just think it's a great mechanic. It not only allows the story to continue, but it creates more story with the devil's bargain. Um,
yeah,
you know, sometimes players go, nope, no, I no, I'm not going to do that, which is fine. But you've gave a chance for that failure to be a success, and you gave chance for them offsetting their just generally bad luck at the dice rolls through the game, really. And I very much like that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's a nice twist on things, and I said this system is people I think have borrowed, and I won't claim to know if this system came up with flashbacks in a role playing game. Other systems might have done this as well, but certainly after experiencing the actual plays of this, I've taken so much from it into my own games because I do love those grim settings. I find myself able to walk around the cities in Dishonored and the city of Yharnam, particularly in Bloodborne, and just sink it in and just see everything and see how horrible and grim and um, industrial it is, and just yeah, I don't know what it is. It really entices me. It's like when you walk around bits of old London or certain bits of Edinburgh, and you're like, oh, this is kind of getting there, but it's too clean.
yeah. No, I mean absolutely. And I've taken ideas from Blades in the Dark wholesale sometimes, and said to traditionally with the fifth edition D group, look, you're doing a heist. Uh, this I didn't use Blades of Dark because they wanted to play their characters, but I
Yeah,
said Blades in the Dark have got these very cool mechanics. You know, it is possible to sit around for 2 hours in a game planning what you're going to try and do in a heist, and you're basing it on information you don't have. So all the things that you are concerned and worried about aren't even there. Now, it's your table, and if you're having fun doing this planning, this is really cool. And as a GM, I react to that and cherry pick some of the ideas that they're doing. But sometimes it's great just to get into the action and to be able to
Yes.
say to the group, look, you've got a choice. You can plan, or we can use these mechanics to run the heist. You're not going to be penalized because you haven't done your planning. Um, I kind of use stress as exhaustion and all of these kind of things.
Yes.
Absolutely, Michael. Flashbacks was drawn for this. Blades in the Dark has been around for a long time. I guess I think it's currently published by Evil Hat. So a big shout out to them as well. But I genuinely feel if you want to run a heist game, this is a very solid rule set to have a look at, because it's fundamentally that is what it's designed for. Um, so yeah, the only other thing are kind of rules that I mean, I like all of the rules, but I think is worth mentioning before we come on. And I know we wanted to chat a little bit about characters as well, because the way they generate characters is a little bit different as well.
Yes.
And maybe I'm doing this out of sync because it's part of character generation. But the other thing that I like is about their gear, their equipment.
Loadout. Yes.
Loadout, yeah. I think this is again a really good mechanic. Do you want to chat about that?
Well, so the idea is when you're going on a heist, you don't say, I have these items. You say, I have a loadout. So you have light, normal, heavy, or encumbered. And obviously, if you're encumbered, you are overburdened, as most games would say, and you can't move very well. You can only sort of walk slowly. But if you want something, it's in there, and that's kind of having 7 to 9 items. Whereas if you've got sort of normal load, that's about 4 or 5 items, you can move around easily. But it just means that you don't have to plan all the items you have right at the time that you're going to right before you go in and say, right, I'm just taking light load, 1 to 3 items. And then when you're in there, you say, well, I'm going to tick off a box of load and I'm going to have a bottle of rum. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. No. I mean, that's a perfect thing. It's not like, I mean, if you are thieves, obviously you're gonna have a crowbar and you're gonna have like lock picks. But like suddenly you need a bottle of rum, or you need that piece of meat that you can, put the drugs into to make the dog go to sleep. Because let's face it, we don't want to hurt any doggies, even in a grim game, because we love
No
doggies.
animal hurt. No animals will be hurt in my game. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Yeah. So a bottle of rum, I think, is a perfect example of something that you wouldn't necessarily have, but you can easily say you've got because of this sweet mechanic that they've got. And it saves again that. Oh well, let's go on a 3-hour shopping trip to ensure that we've got absolutely everything, and then try and explain how we're carrying everything to this this soiree, because some of it
Yeah.
isn't about burglary, some of it isn't about sort of clambering in and doing breakings. It is sometimes it's a social heist, and you kind of you have to go into the ballroom and all the actions taking place in front of everybody. So
Yes.
Elsa's
Yeah.
just spoke up as someone who's been in games crippled by planning. I love how the mechanics keep the pace up. A heist game would be so easy to get stuck in planning. Sounds great. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely.
It's what the engagement rolls for. So the idea is that you choose the type of score you're doing, and there's like a list of scores you can do. And then essentially it's the engagement role is what was your original plan. It doesn't it's not that you have to say, well, we're going to go in and do
Just one
this
moment.
and do this and do this.
Live streaming.
it's just that you only need to do this engagement role, and that was you sitting around the table planning, and that's it. And it's brilliant. You can get straight into that action immediately.
Absolutely. No, it's absolutely amazing. And I say, I mean, I kind of say this a lot, and when I say it, it doesn't sound like I'm a fan of it, but it it means that I really am. It's exactly fit for purpose.
Yeah,
And I mean that it kind of sounds, oh well, but it means this is perfect. It works perfectly for that kind of thing. It works so well. Um, and mechanically, I really like it. Another very sort of interesting aspect to it is um, it suggests very light, if zero planning for it, bullet points. Um,
yeah,
which is an interesting sort of game design because it's narratively driven because it's not so much focused on the fine detail but the larger story. um, there's no point putting emphasis on the fine details.
no, no, no. And I will say, in planning for this game, um, I've got some descriptions written down. I've
Hmm.
got some nice words to say and use and things like that. But I for a D&D game, I'll sometimes think about it'll be a bit more kind of, here's an encounter, and I'll have a bit more planned out for it. Whereas for this, I've got a lot more bullet points, and I'm really, really looking forward to running that.
Hmm.
Um, should we talk about character creation in sort of the
Yeah,
last bit?
I've been working on my voice for the character.
Is it your voice?
uh, I'm Batman.
I think it needs a bit of work.
Yeah. Oh well.
Keep trying, keep trying. I mean, sit on the roof for a bit and crouch on the edge of the garage and I'm Batman.
I mean, I'd happily spend a 3 hour actual play just perched watching everything going on in the rain. Just and that's
If
me.
you want to, if you want to take your PC out in the rain, by all means do it. Just make sure it's attached to one of those breakers so that when it trips, you'll be all right.
Characters then. Characters. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So
Um,
it's an 8-stage process to create a character in Blades in the Dark, and that
but
is it. 8 steps.
you don't roll for stats. What's that about?
No, it's
How
brilliant.
can you be a character if you don't have like a strength stat or a
Um, well, you can easily be. Sorry, I was looking at Elsa's. Is it Brummy? And
Brummy Batman? That's what I'm gonna be. Hello, our
I'm
kid.
not.
It's gonna be brilliant.
um. Uh.
Peaky
So
Blinders.
yeah, well, that's that again. That's one of the touchstones, and I
Mm.
will say I haven't seen Peaky Blinders, but that's because I don't watch TV. So, character creation, you start with choosing what they call a playbook, and that's your character type. And there's loads of different types, sort of to name a few: cutter, hound, slide, spider, whisper, lurk, leech.
Mm.
That's actually all of them. Um,
I mean, can we? I mean, I know that we're running out of a little bit of time, but just to give a flavour for our audience, cutters is a playbook, as you say. So cutters are good at winning fights with violence and intimidation. Play a cutter if you want to get your way. A hound. Hounds are good at tracking things down. Also, long distance combat. Play a hound if you want to choose your battles. A leech. Leeches are good at using alchemy and wrecking stuff with sabotage. Play a leech if you want to be creative with weird tools. Lurk. Lurks are good at sneaking around and breaking into places. Play a lurk if you want to slink around in the shadows. Slide. Slides are good at social situations and subterfuge. Play a slide if you want to manipulate and deceive people. Spider. Spider's good at masterminding maneuvers. Play a spider if you want to assist teammates and deal with other factions. And last but not least, Whisper. Whispers are good at magical stuff and dealing with ghosts. Play a Whisper if you want to meddle with arcane powers. So first and
Indeed.
foremost, what I really like about that is these playbooks, as they call them, are very, you know where you are with them. You know what I mean? They sum it up, and it's straight into, yeah, I want to be a bruiser or whatever. I think the names that they've gave them don't necessarily describe what they do very well. But
No,
then that's why I did
it's
the,
almost in the world vernacular
yeah, yeah.
as well.
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. I don't think it's bad naming. I just don't think you can derive what the characters are
No,
from those
no.
names. So anyway, sorry, you were saying playbooks.
So yeah, once you've chosen your playbook and you've chosen basically what you want to be, you then choose your heritage. So that's detail your choice with a note about your family life. So you could be like rich, poor, whatever. Oh, sorry, that's your where you're from. Sorry, and then your background is laborer, leviathan hunter, whatever. That is more about where you've come from. Then you get 4 action dots. No action can have a nut rating higher than 2 to start with. So this is where you assign it into the things you can do. So hunt, study, survey, tinker, finesse, prowl, skirmish, wreck, attune, command, consort, and sway. You put 4 dots in any of those, and you can't go above 2 at character creation. And that gives you the things that you can do.
Hmm.
Once you've done that, you pick a special ability. That's dependent on your character class. So cutters have their own list. So to give you some examples from the cutter list, Battleborn, you may expend your special armor to reduce harm from attack in combat or push yourself during a fight. Or, for example, a cutter could also have not to be trifled with. You can push yourself to do one of the following: perform a feat of physical force that verges on the superhuman, engage a small gang on equal footing in close combat, which sounds really cool for a cutter. But that's all pre-chosen. Then really it's choosing your close friend and a rival. And finally, and then as point 7, choosing your vice. And this is really important for downtime because your vice is kind of how you reduce your stress. And you can also overindulge in your vice as well. And you need to pick the type of vice, detail it with a short description, and indicate the name and location of your vice purveyor. And there are a few of those in the character book as well, and in the handbook that says what you can choose from. But again, it's a role-playing game. Feel free to ask the GM to make up your own. Record your name, alias, and look. Now, this is always the hardest thing, coming up with a name for a character, so you'll probably take the longest to do that. But yeah, Bruce Wayne, alias. Batman, or would it be not Batman? Because he's definitely not Batman.
I can't play Batman anyway because I'd have to take multiple playbooks.
Yes, you would. That's the reason you can't play Batman, not because the GM says that's a terrible. I mean, it says that maybe you should reconsider your options there.
Yeah.
Ever the diplomat,
okay.
me.
Very good. Very good. No, so character generation, as Kristian just said, is super easy. And it's really easy to create flavoursome characters, especially with a little bit of backstory and a bit of flavour and just kind of thought. The world setting is rich. It's not extensive description, but what they've written is so cool that it's really easy to be inspired for backgrounds and the like. So
Yeah.
it's I'm very very excited.
Yes, it's going to be a lot of fun. But that's on the 28th of February. Please feel free to come along and watch. We have, well, me leading it, and we have 5 wonderful players ready to play in it. So, including Andy, you are a wonderful player. So
All right.
I've included you in that list. But yeah, come along, watch, throw peanuts. It'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, so that's it.
Very good. And we are looking at doing other uh, actual plays as well of different systems and the like. So if you are interested in taking part in those, um, obviously you'll be on video. Obviously, you need a decent setup so that we can live stream it. But if you are interested, contact me on our Discord, and we'll talk. This is what the 6 o'clock club, is all about. It's a sounding board for ideas and the like. And talking of ideas, um, tomorrow we've got Matt coming in and he's going to talk about his Kickstarter. I'll put the
Exciting.
details of that. He launched it today. It's called Remnants, and it's a solo journal playbook. It's very, very cool. I've backed it today already. Um, but Kristian will be here as well, and we'll be both asking him sort of questions about it, and he'll be chatting about it. I think with the subject matter, he can't chat too much about what's in it because that spoils it. But he can certainly chat about how it came up in his mind and how he decided to do the Kickstarter, because it's part of a zine Kickstarter thing that Kickstarter do in February's, which is it's quite interesting, really. Um, but we'll also be chatting about some other things. So if you've got anything you would like us to chat about, please post in Discord under
Please
this as
send it
well.
in.
Um, Otherwise, we will choose some of our favourite subjects to talk about instead. Um, so I think that is it. I'm
Yeah,
buzzing
I
about
can
it. Sorry.
smell dinner's ready, so I'm gonna have to go down in a
Yeah,
second.
I've been looking at the rules as we're going through this. I have read the rules. I've played it before, and I'm so excited. So let's call up that preview again. There we go. Before we go, Blades in the Dark, one last score, an um, original actual play by Kristian here, 28th of February at 7 o'clock, which is in 2 weeks' time. In the meantime, thank you very much for joining us again with the 6 o'clock club, and we will be back at the same time tomorrow. In the meantime, look after yourselves, look after each other, have a great rest of evening, and we will see you tomorrow. Goodbye from me. You can't see me, but you can see my hand, and I'm sure Kristian is going to say goodbye as well.
Bye.
I'm Batman. Goodbye for now. See you later.
Bye.